Welcome to Built for This, the podcast where purpose meets performance. Hosted by business strategist and human behavior specialist Carly Pepin, this show dives into the real stories behind high-growth businesses. Let's bring life to your vision. Hey guys, so welcome back. I'm really excited for today. I have Chad Bauer with us. He is the president and owner of SR&B Advertising, a performance-driven growth marketing agency based in Baltimore, over 60 years in business. Chad acquired the agency from his father and transformed it from traditional advertising shop into a modern data-driven operation. The transition wasn't just strategic, it was personal. Chad had to confront his own tendencies as an operator, learn to delegate, and do the inner work on himself before he could grow the business to what it is today. Today, SR&B has achieved 94% client retention, and every client has come through referral. No paid awards, no outside sales teams, no self-promotion. Chad started his first business at 13 and built SR&B around being present for his wife and two young boys. He leads with a simple belief: strategy without insight is just guessing. So welcome, Chad. It's really good to have you.
Awesome. Great intro. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it is fun listening to those. You're like, I
Yeah,
could do that.
I think wait, did that actually happen? Yeah.
It
No, it's
did.
great to be here. Really excited to, talk through some things today, connect with you and your audience.
Yeah, me too. I'm curious as well. So your dad had SR&B advertising before. At what point did you decide to actually come into the business?
I had been in the corporate space. It was never working for him or working with him or, taking over the agency was never really something on either one of our radars. Um, Post college, I went and got into a sales position, a sales role with a national media company, and was selling advertising. Ironically, there, um, thought that the corporate space was, the way that I wanted to go. Especially my first couple years, I was just thriving on the inner team competitiveness between other reps and winning, beating them out on certain things, and just felt like working my way up the corporate ladder. Maybe one day being in New York City for a media company was the way. Um, and I guess probably around 5.5 years in, it just the corporate stuff just weighed on me and got to me, and my mind was really starting to kind of think back, like when I was 13, 14, up to 18 years old when I started my first business. Like, man, I got to be doing this for myself. I can't be letting other people's priorities and objectives kind of demand my life and, how I live my day, how I make a living, how I support my loved ones and my family. So, called my father one day and asked him, "What's your plan?" And he said, I don't really have one. I don't know what I'm going to do. I probably have, about, 6 to 8 more years under my belt before I'll be ready to do it. But I don't have a plan. If you want to come on board, give it a shot, come on. See what happens. So that's kind of what that's where I kind of made that turn. And that was back in, came on board in September 2012. So it's been almost about 14 years.
That's awesome. And just so also people know a little bit more about the type of advertising you do. I know we described it a little bit in your bio, but tell us a little bit about what it was like when you started back in 2012, and then also how it's transitioned into what it is today, because I know you've added some significant components to that.
Yes, absolutely. When I came on board for the first, 4 to 5 years, I just had my head down. I was out selling, trying to drive revenue to the shop, basically a, business development, account manager type role. Um, and I wasn't really involved in the operations or the day-to-day oversight of the staff, of our projects, of our deliverables, high level company-wide decisions, things like that. My father was still at the wheel with those types of things. um and it was kind of, I guess, maybe structured that way a little bit, Carly, because I really wanted to gain an understanding of how the place worked and operated, and get a better feel for what our capabilities were and what we could go to market to support clients, existing and new. And so that those first 4 to 5 years really allowed me to get that understanding and gain that clarity around, what kind of the business was at that stage, or that state of the game. And I think that that was valuable because I could then kind of start to think about what the future looked like if I were to take things over and acquire the firm. Um, So, that was, like I say, first 4 to 5 years, and then my father brought me in, started to bring me into some after sitting down with him and saying, "Hey, I see my future here. I wanna buy this business from you. I wanna take this business to the next level." Probably about 2 to 3 years, that we just worked really hand in hand with things. He brought me into kind of those higher level conversations and planning, situations. He would, get me involved with the staff more, and then slowly started to kind of hand off over the management of the team, our processes, and what did exist and what did not exist from a process perspective. And then, yeah, like slowly we kind of iterated, different responsibilities as the years went. We settled on, kind of a transition date, about a year and a half almost in advance of when that was going to be, and then we kind of just backed out from that date up to that current time frame. What do we need to accomplish? What issues are we going to have when he's not here to do A, B, and C? You know what I mean? That type of stuff, and really tried to be as strategic about going into that transition as possible. Of course, we had a lot of hurdles, fell in a lot of holes, that we had to dig ourselves out of, but that planning and kind of that communication up front was a big thing. And then I think, from there, uh, once I really kind of had my hands around it all, that's been for about, a little over 5 years now. It was the clarity became real, like, wow, we're really, really good and strong in some of these areas. And in some ways we can double down on those things, but there's other areas where we definitely have room for improvement. We need to develop better processes and systemize more deliverable work out of those types of things. And so it was, to kind of recap that, it was kind of a sequential process to from coming in here and literally opening the door for the first time to where I sit today. That transition of responsibility, of ownership, of leadership was kind of a, one bite at a time as we went. And looking back, I think in the big picture, it was good. It was solid.
Yeah.
Definitely some learning experiences. Definitely some things we'd probably do different if we were to do it again. But we all lived through it. My father and I are still close, and life is good. So it's all working.
That's awesome. I'm curious, even when you say like there are some learning experience, I would love to know what are the things that if you could go back that you would shift, that you would improve, just looking back at like, whoa, I didn't even realize that would happen. Those
Yeah.
moments.
I'm not quite sure if there definitely were a couple specific situations, and I probably would ramble too long, to try and, dig those up and speak to them. But um, a realization perspective and kind of standpoint on my end, I think that the one of the biggest things for me was learning how to let go of things, right? Like I felt like, okay, I'm gonna be the leader here. I've gotta have my hands on everything. I've got to see things before they go to this vendor or before they go to this client. I've got to review this before it goes internally. And I don't know if that I came to realize through some self-assessment and just working on myself, which is where it all started, that I needed to learn how to let go. I needed to learn how to delegate better. And while that was a bit weird at first, the clarity and the learnings and understandings of that now are just profound. Um, I needed to get away from the nervousness of something not being done right because I wasn't doing it. My father was a true owner operator, and he led with excitement and humor and fun, all things that were part of the culture and really what's allowed our agency to be alive for over 60 years now. I didn't want to lose any of that. He
Yeah.
and I do share a lot of personality characteristics. So it was easy for me to kind of keep some of that going along just because of my personality. But one thing I did realize was I did not want to be an owner operator, if I truly wanted to grow this
Mhm.
business. If and again, nothing was wrong with it, nothing was broken. I acquired a business with an incredible foundation, but I wanted to maybe bump some walls out and build up from that foundation a couple floors. And I still have those desires, and we're headed in that direction right now with growth. But in order to do that, I needed to, get away from that mentality of if I want to, if it needs to be done right, I need to do it. And so that visibility, that work on myself, and maybe understanding a little bit more about myself and how I operated through going through like Colby assessments and different, self-grading critiques situations was like, okay, yeah, this makes total sense. The data is telling me back exactly how I think, operate, manage, lead, whatever it might be. I need to put these things into place now and really start to dive specifically in those directions. So Carly, I think that, one of the learnings was really just to be able to let go, trust
Mhm.
this incredible staff of people that we have. And the staff has changed over the last, 10 years. And we've been able to really, I think, align as a team more accurately and efficiently than we ever have in 60 years. So the initial learning of having to work on myself, being able to, give way and give up things, and delegate, ultimately, I think led to better communication, better transparency throughout the team, a willingness for more collaboration and stuff, which in our industry is a really, really big thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love this dynamic too because it's like it's not just about the business, but it's also about you and how you show up and understanding yourself more deeply, so that you're not just building a business the way that you're told to, but it's like, no, this is also who I am strategically. This I know is like what's going to work. I'm curious when you talk about like the assessments that you've taken and stuff. How did you actually strategically implement that in the business so that it could basically function while you're flourishing in that environment? Again, I love that you did that. It's just one of the top reasons to help us not burn out, you know?
It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can tell you I had that feeling. I'm going to say I had the feeling of burnout because I was still, only what do you want to call it? Maybe 9 years into it, 8, 9 years into the shop, and the buyout had started, and I was making decisions and leading and doing all that. But I was in a fog. I felt like I couldn't. Some days I could see a mile down the road. Other days I couldn't see but 100 feet in front of me. So, um, that feeling wasn't great, and I know that we've all had it. You have it in various aspects of your life, not just business. And I'm sure your listeners can relate and understand that. I think for me, having to look inward first was not just a solution towards the direction that the business was going, but how we were to operate and grow internally as a team. Like we're all people still, right? And we still kind of need and um, demand certain things as we go through our day to day. As I started that self analysis, or whatever you want to call it, that work on myself, I kind of realized that there were some pretty tried and true methods of, personality evaluation that were out there. I used the Colby assessment as an example. And it's like there's a 4 number system that goes along with that. So specific to your question, my Colby 7, which was the first number in my Colby score, means that I'm a fact finder. So that kind of meant that I instinctively wanted to um, specify and research every decision. And as I realized that, I then started to kind of correlate that to why it made delegation feel kind of physically uncomfortable,
Yep.
right? Because I'm like, well, I got to know these answers and stuff before I can make a decision, but you just want me to shoo it off, And that was like that, it's weird, like, when you go through that personally, as I'm sure, a lot of people have listening, like, it's an eye opener. There's a level of uncomfortability, like I mentioned, but there's a level of clarity to it that you never would have had prior, and that just
Mhm.
little bit of clarity, which also feeds into my personality and other Colby, segments, that was the key. And once I was clear on that, something like that allowed me to then maybe in an example internally in the business, as you asked, allowed me to then maybe structure meetings with the team a little bit differently, cover more topics in the same amount of time because I'm not trying to get everybody to go down that rabbit hole with me. Delegate somebody else to go down the rabbit hole. And then when we get together to talk about it, stay surface level, answer the questions that kind of are needed and most prioritized, and then move on to the next thing. So self realization, attributed to action items that I could take in how or internally as I led or managed or communicated, then delivered better outputs, whether that be better structure to the meetings, better outcomes from those meetings, or just being more efficient with our time spent together as a team.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. If you're really resonating with what we're talking about and want to get clear on what truly drives you, what your core values are, head on over to my website. In the tools and tips section, there is a free values assessment. And this is a quick exercise that's going to help you to uncover what actually matters most with you so you can lead and live with more clarity, fulfillment, and momentum. Yeah, I love that. I love it too because it's that dynamic where it's like we work on the inside, but then the outside is also going to fall into place, right? Where it just
Yeah.
doesn't have to be like this one or the other.
No.
Like, this is who I am. I know this information is what I require to like move me forward. Now, how do I get it? And oddly enough, it's like a great opportunity for you to put more structure in the business and more
Yeah.
organization. And it's
Yeah.
great. It was like a win-win. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. I know this sounds maybe a little weird, or I don't want to come off pompous in any way, shape, or form. But I feel that this business isn't just about what we do as an agency to our clients with the services
Mhm.
that we provide. It's who we are, right? It's who we are as individuals, whether it's in a leadership role or a more contributor role on the team. Um, that for me, that's literal, right? Like SRMB, I carry a family name and a family legacy with this. Um, and, when I referring to kind of being stuck in that operator mode, the business was stuck too.
Yeah.
So that inner work, I think, validated maybe some philosophies and thoughts that are out there that this business shouldn't just be about what we do. It should be about who we are. And I think that through leading a team of people that were working with another leader, my father in the past, transitioning that responsibility, um, losing some people just based on for whatever reason and having it to then, fill those roles or restructure and bring on new roles for the firm based on the direction that we were going.
Mhm.
Speaking to somebody about who they are as they join a team or they've been a part of a team, I think brings out the best. I think it gives them almost a sense of ownership and tie to the bigger picture of what we're trying to do as a business.
Mhm.
And, you know, let's face it, whether we own our own business or we're working for somebody else, we're exchanging units of time, right, in our life to be able to support what we want to support, our family, our health, our well-being, whatever it might be. And so I think that if I as clearly as possible and saying to people, hey, be here for 40 hours a week in exchange for dollars to support your lifestyle, um, taking a little bit of a different angle to be more about us as individuals and how we fit together as a
Mhm.
team, I think has been a big part of our culture and how we'll continue to scale with that.
That's awesome. I'm curious as well because even that dynamic, because it sounds like it's very important for you to understand yourself, like understand that you have individuals working at the company. What does that look like for your employees? Like, what is within the culture to help them understand themselves in this dynamic as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a it's a it's one of those things that through my experience, I've found some people really latch onto and soak it up like a sponge. And there's other people that almost put a wall up because they're like, well, this is work, and
Yeah.
I'm just here to work and I'm just here to, collect my pay and be friendly and do my job and deliver. But ultimately, some people just don't want to kind of mix those things. And that's okay, but I bring that up because as I wanted to introduce some things to the team, I didn't want it to seem forceful or I didn't want to be, this is a mandatory assessment that you must take and report back to me so that we can then structure your one-on-ones in a more efficient way. Like I never wanted it to be that. That again, that's kind of tying back to the corporate stuff and the nonsense that I feel like some people just can't connect with. So it's been more of like um, we use different systems to manage our work internally. Our project management software, we have like a kind of like a post-it board on that. It's all electronic, but I'll post things up there like the evaluations, the Colby self-assessment, some of those other ones that I did, and really just say, hey guys, if you're ever curious about improving or wanting to know more about yourself or what have you, like these are free to take. If there's a cost, I'd be happy to cover it for you. Um, anytime I've listened to a podcast or watched one or even read a book that I feel could be valuable to the team as a whole.
Mhm.
Post it there. Sometimes I find them valuable to maybe one particular individual, and I'll just connect with them one on one and say, "Hey, I came across this. It reminded me of you, or you were talking about challenges with, time management or whatever it might be. This is something great to watch that I think you'll find value out of." So just trying to be, I guess, more of a steward to supporting, not making it seem like I needed things out of them to do a better job from my perspective, and more, hey, these things are out there. I'm bringing them to the table for your resource and your consumption, whenever you might like. And I think that, again, going back to what I just said, some people love it. Some people, some people probably don't take a huge amount of value from it. But even those individuals, you can tell, have tuned into some things, have taken some of those assessments, right? And aren't usually the most forthright to offer up, "Hey, these are my results." But it's cool. It's kind of, the culture thing. Culture is probably one of the hardest things to scale.
Mhm.
It's a it's a continuous living thing, and I've described to many people, my goal here is to really turn this into its own living organism,
Mhm.
so that, the owner doesn't have to be involved in everything, and can work more on, the business itself than working in it. And I think of how I've tried to frame culture here. I probably maybe have, um, maybe taken things a little bit too far. I tried to push too much, and I've had to kind of rein back a little bit. But I think, again, it's one of those things where the team, and how, it's not just about how we look at each other. It's how we look at ourselves when we're walking in the door that day. And I think
Mhm.
that there's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah, well, I think what's interesting too is, even that dynamic of, you put these tests up there, but you also understand that not everyone's gonna participate. But that's also understanding the individual, right? Where it's like some individuals really wanna know this stuff, some wanna implement it, some genuinely don't. And it's not like this good or bad thing. And you're like, I'm still gonna acknowledge that you're an individual and I'm gonna acknowledge that part of you and I'm not gonna force it on you,
Yeah,
which is
it's so
just
true.
it's
Like,
hard to do.
it is hard to do, and I'm passionate
Uh,
about what I do, where I spend my time, how I support others. Um, I do like to believe I invest in people, and I
mhm,
say that in the position that I'm at right now. But I've always felt that way. I've always tried to surround myself by people that are smarter than me at things that I don't know a lot about, and I'm okay admitting I don't understand these things. I don't know those things yet, but I can definitely get you an answer because I've surrounded myself with resources, whether they're external or internal to the business, to help, that part of my life or whatever it might be. Um, it is it is tough, because of my view on the world and work and love and passion and how we just live as humans. It's really tough when, you might have someone that you're not you might be giving towards, right, or trying to get more out of, and they're just not. I've come to realize that there's nothing wrong with that person. There is absolutely nothing wrong. It's just them. It's their personality. It's how they live their life. I can't continuously be wandering and wondering about why, why do they think this? Why aren't they doing this? If they're getting their work done, they're happy, and the team feels supported by them and vice versa, then, I think that's a big, big thing. All the extra stuff, if they're not on with it, that's fine. Again, nothing wrong with them. Just have to accept it, understand the individual, and move forward accordingly.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm curious as well. So, even as we talk about you scaling the business, right? So, we've talked a lot about the culture dynamic and what you're focused on with cultures. So, as you've taken it on, as you've kind of moved into what it is today, what would you say you changed even about the strategy of what you guys were doing, where you guys were going, the operations, how you guys function operationally to continue to help this business scale?
Whew. That's a great one, and I could probably talk for an hour specifically just on that. So I think there were a number of things. I think that we recognized that we were inefficient in some of our processes, whether they were documented SOPs or, up here in our brains, for people that had been here for, years on end. I think that we kind of once I kind of got an idea of how I wanted to lead the team better, structure meetings, daily stand-ups, weekly tacticals, a monthly strategic meeting, and then kind of a quarterly connect, um, that we needed to do a better job of documenting our processes, because we had so many long tenured employees here. There was a lot of institutional knowledge. There were a number of single points of failure, that we knew about, right? Some were like right in front of us, and we knew every time we touched that stove, it was hot. And some of them we were realizing as we were going through, long-term project works, like website design and development projects. Like we keep coming into this gap and we need to now understand why and how to fill that moving forward. So one major thing was, collectively working as a team to document processes by team or by department, so that as we scale and bring new people on, there's documentation in place. The onboarding for those people, can be a lot more efficient and quicker, and those new people would carry on with efficacy to how we deliver and how we do our work. So that was a big thing. Another thing I think, that we went through, that I believe has been really powerful for us is, we've always kind of been a team of a bunch of Swiss Army knives, right? Everybody's kind of worn multiple hats, had multiple sets of responsibilities that if you compare our firm to a larger firm, you'd see just a clear difference in the hierarchy of their structure. Ours is much more of like a at that time was much more of a condensed version with, again, people wearing multiple hats, larger agency version, less hats, more individuals, but less hats on those individuals. And that was a pure result of just the business that I inherited and the foundation that was built. Again, nothing was wrong with it, but in order to scale, we had to, figure out how to maybe take the hats off of some of those people.
Mm.
So while there were a number of, I don't want to say challenges because that sounds negative, but while there were a number of things that came to light in just taking over the business from my father and the relationship that we had and the inner workings there, to how the business needed to transition as well with plans for growth. I think that it was really, important to bring the team together to look through those processes, identify them, and start to identify gaps. Doing that allowed us to learn, oh, wow, we've got two or three people that contribute to copywriting for our projects. Excuse me. We need to bring a copywriter on, or we need to find at least a part-time resource to handle that stuff and get that off the plate of some of these other people so that they can spend more time doing, more important things to the project.
Mhm.
Um, that's allowed us to identify mid-level management, personnel to bring on board that have started with us in the last 2 to 3 years. And so the structure of our team today looks quite differently than it did 4 or 5 years ago, because of that work and because we said, all right, this is who we are, this is who we want to be, and we've got a ways to go to get there. How do we start to structure our team and kind of divide our resources accordingly to answer the every month mainstaying clients that are here every single month and the project work that comes in and out as the year goes on. Trying to think if there's anything else specific to that worth discussing. Um, oh yeah, let's this would be a third great point to hit on. Uh, Growth, right? How do we grow, right? Revenues is the ultimate driver of that. And the agency has never, in the 35 prior years that I wasn't here, that we this was operating, we never applied for awards. We had never, really advertised or marketed the firm, or gotten the firm out there to say this is what we do, and if you're looking for help, hit us up. Our retention was a sole result of our customer service, the ways in which we did business, the relationships that we foster and built rapport around. um, we weren't getting really any cold, organic leads through our website. Everything new was coming through referrals, which is great. Like that in and of itself, as we analyzed that data, told us, hey, we've got traction, we've got product market fit, and when you've got traction, just like we tell our clients, pour fuel on that fire. And so it was time for us to pour fuel on that. Well, pouring fuel on that was our customer service, our account management, our account success team. So growing that and evolving that was one of the first things that we did that allowed me to take a lot off of my plate because I was still overseeing some accounts and some relationships that I was close with, and getting that off my plate to the account success team and client success team to manage and run moving forward. So as we've done all of that, and going back to the plans for growth, how do we get more business? We need to start getting ourselves out there more. We need SR&B to be more of a regional player. We need to be a part of events connected to our industry. We need to be connected to things, give back and community oriented, supporting things that our clients are a part of. So, um, that was another thing that helped me going through all of that kind of helped me realize, all right, we're going to have to be different now. We've got to
Mhm.
set up some mouse traps now for some inbound. We need to get engaged in some outbound efforts, and really start to put more of a marketing plan around the agency than we ever have, just like we do for our clients. What's that? There's that whole the shoemakers kids are the last to get the shoes. I butchered
Yeah,
that,
basically.
but it was kind of one of those things. But again, good to go through some of the work that we did, Carly, because if you'd have sat me down and been like, all right, how are we going to market this firm? Day one, I'd have said, maybe the same way we had been because it's not broken, it's working. So
That's awesome. And I'm curious just some of the things that you even discussed, like as, scaling the business, right? So I know one thing you mentioned is you had a lot of additional SOPs, you were doing increased dynamics for the operations, right? When you did that, was there some pushback from certain individuals just because they're not used to it? Was that a difficult transition? And I'm wondering, like, I know sometimes even when I'm a business consultant, so sometimes when I go in, sometimes we lose people on the leadership team who don't want to do it. Which, long term the benefit is they're not really aligned and engaged with helping the company scale the way it's meant to, but I also know it's challenging.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It is very challenging. Change is, we as humans, naturally don't like change. And when here comes the previous owner's son, the new owner, calling shots and telling us we need to do these things that we've been doing already for a number of years that work, that aren't broken. Yeah, there was pushback. There was, um luckily, because I think of the nature of our people and quite honestly how my father led them, it never was a it never got down to, yelling match or a throwdown, or, no one ever really got super angry or negative with each other.
That's awesome.
Um, in fact, I think the biggest thing that probably came out of it from a positive standpoint, other than actually having those things documented, um, was seeing everyone's passion and observing everyone's or lack thereof. Understanding that now they're at the table, they have an opportunity for their voice to be heard. What is it that they're saying? Um, but more importantly, why are they saying it? Because that's the root of what they're saying. And if hearing through the individuals, well, isn't this just aren't we just doing work to do work here? Or how is this going to be valuable to us, 6, 12, 18 months down the line? Allowing people to ask those questions gave me the ability to kind of see into the future a little bit and with regards to how I needed to communicate with them. And when, you know, I was asking them to take time out of their workday on a regular cadence through over the course of a number of weeks to document things, I felt that going into it, the biggest challenge for them was figuring out how to prioritize that versus the work that they needed to get done, and
Mhm.
then also deliver things back to me in a way that were fairly similar, right? I could consume everything from everybody in kind of a similar format or what have you. So I actually went into that initial meeting talking about doing that and talking about implementing that across the team with a bit of a process for them to follow to just make it easier. So fire up Loom. I don't care about what's on your screen right now if you want to share as you talk, but fire up Loom and just start recording your thoughts about these different projects or these different pieces of work that we have to develop the SOP around.
Mhm.
Record it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't need your face on it. I just want that transcript. and then taking that transcript and using that to pull out the high level things that needed to be identified in the SOP or what have you. Giving them some tools, in other words, to get that done, I think empowered them a little bit. And I think
Mhm.
that I've learned as I go into new objectives with the team where I'm asking things of them, the more defined I am up front, the more maybe olive branch I can extend to them to get that done. Hey, use this tool or document things here, and I'll take care of the rest. That tended to make things a little bit easier, and I think they were willing to then understand. All right, yeah, this is above and beyond me, putting this piece of deliverable together, or answering this client from a meeting or whatever. But I understand the importance and what it's going to be, and so I think continuous communication through it helped. But, yeah, it was definitely a bear at first. A lot of questions, a lot of, you know, um, pushback, but, small team, we connect a lot together, everyone. And I think, when you get into a conversation like that, things can get a little heated. That's okay. It's
Mhm.
quite all right. That's the drama that I personally believe we need to have in meetings sometimes, to really get the best out of the conversation and the best outputs to walk away from that meeting with. So, yeah, I could totally I could totally relate and agree and tell you that that was my experience. But I think that going through it, rolling up the sleeves and trudging through the mud a little bit
Mhm.
is helpful for people like you and I.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. So, if this conversation is really hitting home and you want to get a real snapshot of what's working and what's not in your business, head on over to my website in the tools and tips section and you can have the business performance health check. In just about 15 minutes, you're going to see where the friction is and where your next growth opportunity lies within your company. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious as well, because I think this is like great, like points to make and people to understand, even individuals who have a hard time bringing conflict into a work environment, right? And it's like you said, it's like every now and then you want people to speak up, maybe it'll get a little heated, but it's not going to get crazy. Tell us a little bit about how you've actually created this dynamic where you can have, it sounds like healthy conflict at work. It's difficult. Yeah.
Well,
Hard.
if I told you that I had it all figured out and the perfect answer for you, I'd be lying through my teeth. So,
Which is awesome that you said that,
yeah,
but
I
it's just
just
yeah, it's like, what do you have so far? And
yeah.
it's like
Um,
that
so
refinement.
I think that that's kind of tied to I think before I was mentioning kind of like our meeting structure, um, and how we come together as individual teams or as a collaborative, agency as a whole. Um, I read a book. It was called Death by Meeting, and the author is escaping me right now, but he's well known, and I'm sure a bunch of you have listened to him or read him. Um, he talks about the reason that meetings suck, right? Like, why do we hate them as people right now? And there's two reasons. One, they typically don't have a purpose or a reason, and two, they lack drama. And in the book, he talks about the fact that Hollywood figured this out, and they figured it out a long time ago. Drama, 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 right? Well, what's the value of that to Hollywood? The value to that of Hollywood is if in the first 10, 15 minutes, if the drama's not presented and the scene's not delivered the right way, your chances of hooking your audience and keeping them engaged are slim to none. It's the same type of thing with a meeting, right? It's not like we choose to go to a meeting like we choose to go to the movies, but it's a part of our job. It's a part of connecting and getting together, and it's something that's inevitable. So how do we make them the best that we can make them? And there's so much about this topic and so much you can watch and listen to it. But what really resonated with me is having the reason and the purpose for that meeting in advance so people know what they're going into, and then activating drama in those conversations. And sometimes that comes out naturally because we might be talking about something that an individual or multi people are very passionate about for whatever reason. And that is okay. It could be personal, it could be professional, it could be because they've done that work, thousands of hours of that type of work. It could be because they haven't done much work like that and they don't want to do much work like that, right? There's all kinds of reasons, but those reasons are what drive us to have a constructive, well thought out conversation about a topic that we might disagree on or have different thoughts, feelings, and emotions on. And so the drama, as I originally brought it up to the team, some people laughed, some people looked at me eyes wide open, like you want me coming in here, gunslinging kind of thing. And as we've implemented that, the regular cadence of our meetings, as I described earlier, best believe it. Like those weekly tactical meetings, everyone comes with a little bit of a list. There's no agenda to that meeting to start, and we do a round robin around the room and give everybody a minute to 2 minutes to just throw up, right?
Yeah.
Just be real. And I have found that I think some individuals look forward to that because
And
they may not feel like they have that space or opportunity throughout the other 39 hours of their week, and um I think that's been cool. I think that that's been able to set the tone for some of these meetings a little bit differently than they ever were.
mhm.
Um I also feel like, some individuals tend to bite their lip because they just want to get through the meeting. This topic's already been talked about for 40 minutes. What the hell else do we have to say about this? I'm just going to keep my mouth shut just for the sake of, I got to get out of here because I got a meeting and, a half hour after this is supposed to end. I think opening that door to saying, hey, this is where we can be real. Sorry, there's a siren going by. This is when and how we can be real to everyone here. And if I'm given the opportunity, I'm going to take advantage of that. So I think it allowed some people to feel like, all right, this is my podium or my opportunity to kind of voice my opinions and my thoughts in a safe, somewhat
Yes.
safe environment, right? You might get a side eye, you might get I disagree with that, or even as direct as you're wrong. But that's okay. That's okay. And I think those things have happened. People have become more accustomed and comfortable with it. And ultimately, is making for much better meetings and much better outputs from those meetings.
Yeah, that's awesome. I couldn't agree with you more. It's actually really funny. There was one corporate office I worked at, and when we would have meetings with the CEO, he didn't want the conflict. He kind of would just sort of talk about things for a while. And I remember sitting there one time and I knew who was talking. I knew Janet was talking, but I couldn't keep my eyes open. And I was zoning out like this. And I was desperately trying to stay awake. And then he comes to me and he goes, Carly, what do you think? And I'm like, shit. I was like, what do I think? And I was like, I think Janet made some amazing points. I really agree with a lot of what she said. And he's like, that's great. And he moved on. And I got in the car and I looked at she was the COO at the time and she was the one who oversaw me. And I said, you can't have me in those meetings anymore. I said, I have no idea what I agreed to. I was like, I almost fell asleep. Did you just see me falling asleep? And she's like, no, you don't have to go. But what was amazing, it was like, it's like you said, when I was in meetings with her, and this is why we worked so well together, is we were able to just talk about it like it is, right? Like it wasn't talking about all the fluff and all these things that things could be. It was talking about what was really going on. And it was like, no, actually, like the amount of work we have and the way that we're processing and going through the system doesn't match up with what we can do and we'll never catch up. And that was the truth. Like that was the reality of what was going on. And I was like, so we got to figure something out. And we would go back and forth and it would be conflict and people would be frustrated because they don't want to change the system and all of this sort of chaos would be happening. But at the end of it, like we'd walk out and we'd have a solution, instead of just that dynamic of we're just going to like sit around and have a meeting for the sake of having a meeting with
For the
no
sake of having a
purpose
meeting,
that I'm
right?
going to sleep in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
I
creating
remember
that
being
environment.
yeah,
Yeah.
in the corporate days of my career, like that was once I wiped off the freshness of, being 22, 23 years old, post college, and I felt like I had a future there, the meetings, that was kind of one of the first things that I'm like, why do we even do this? Like, why do we
Yeah.
rush here this early in the morning to eat bagels and cream cheese to walk out with nothing? And it bothered me, right? It really, really bothered me because again, tying it back, I'm here. I'm exchanging units of my life time to be here and I'm paid on commission. I just missed 65, 70 minutes of commissionable opportunity. Like what the hell? And so when I came to the agency, my father didn't have meetings set with team. He didn't do one-on-ones. He didn't do reviews. You know what I mean? It was like, hey, let's all get together and brainstorm about this creative objective. Let's all
Yeah.
get together and celebrate this win, right? Or talk about, the shortfall on this deliverable and how we need to be better next time. Like, those were the meetings. So right away, naturally, because of my previous experience, I'm like, and the meetings were good. Like, yeah, we don't need them. And after time found like, well, that wasn't the right objective. Like, I gotta bring structure to this. But I want to
Yeah.
do it in a way just like you said, and just how you described. And it takes time, right? None of this is clean. Growth is messy. It's change people hate. You know what I mean? We can talk about all the realities of it. But I think that, you know, aligning the team on what is the purpose, what's our goal coming out of these, and, in the weekly tactical, bear it all. Come on
Yeah.
in and bear it all. It's a no holds bar type of meeting. I think that those types of things have been good. And as I said in the beginning, they will continue to evolve, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I love that there's like a different structure for each of them. So it's like each one has its message, its meaning, its purpose, so
That's the
that
whole purpose.
everyone, yeah,
Yep.
they just walk out understanding like this is what I'm going to get today. I have this issue, but I know I can address it on Wednesday, and it doesn't need to be addressed today. So that's actually fine. And so
Exactly.
everyone, yeah, they have a
Yeah.
good time.
I even
Yeah.
had some people say that. Some people like, I'm glad we're doing that monthly strategic, because those things I never felt like we had a place to talk about. It
Mhm.
was too high level to try and fit into a week when we've already got 80% of our work plan, for that week as we come in on a Monday. How the hell am I going to fit this into a conversation without disrupting someone's calendar, schedule, plans, whatever it might be? It's just, some people have been like, that gives us an opportunity to bring up those bigger topic
Yeah.
conversations. And oftentimes they get brought up, they don't get addressed that meeting, right? There'll be maybe some ad hoc stuff that we'll schedule as a result of that conversation in coming days or weeks, and then have an action plan to maybe work towards a solution on that issue, or on that high level topic that the team brought up. So it's cool when you it's cool when you do something, you implement something like what we do, and you try to get everybody in that boat with an oar in their hand, rowing in the same direction. It's another thing when you see where you actually get as a result of it. And
Yeah.
or better yet, those people that are rowing are yelling back to you like, we got to go harder on the right, less on the left, right? And
Yeah.
that's okay. That's what I want. It's not my job to say go harder on the left. That's what we need to do collectively as a team. So I think that empowerment's huge in so many ways.
I love that. That's really, really cool. And I think it's cool because I agree with you. It's like when we get that feedback and you get to see it and everyone's like, I didn't think this would work, but this is actually amazing. And can we do more of this? It's a really cool dynamic to just to see people thrive in the
It is.
environment that you're really trying to meticulously craft every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those wins, Carly, and I know your listeners do. Those feel just as good, sometimes if better than, the new client that signed on, or what
It
I mean,
does.
some new capability that we can now, deliver to for our clients. And those things, that's honestly what, gets me going every day, and
Yeah.
getting that feedback and seeing and witnessing how everyone is kind of aligned and in tow with, one common goal or series of goals. So,
Yeah. I think
yeah,
people forget about that too, because you're accurate. It's like when I reconnect with my business, I love reading client testimonials and the feedback, right? I don't go look at my bank account and calculate how many clients I've had. That just sits there, that's doing its thing. I actually just look and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what we got. That was the result. That's what
so
actually
true.
fuels my soul. And it's like you said, it's like you're getting, I think too, the cool thing about business is a lot of people don't realize business is like having this group of individuals that work up to you or work under you that you're actually helping to do something bigger in their life. Like whether they want to have that paycheck and just go home. Like you said, some people just want to show up and go home and do what they love, but you're giving them that opportunity. That's what they want. Some people really want to work their way up in a company. And that's like, then you give them that opportunity. And it's like, well, how can I structure the business to fit not just my own goals, but people's personal goals so that we're like basically paying people to just empower themselves in different ways and do what they want. It's such a cool feeling.
I couldn't
So
agree more
cool.
with you. Yeah, you
Yeah.
everything that you just said there, I believe wholeheartedly in. And I
Yeah.
think that we aren't the only two people that say that or feel that way, right? In fact, I
Yeah.
think there are businesses, even corporations, large involved that might speak that tone, but don't necessarily put those things into action.
Yeah.
Which is some of the things like we've talked about today. I feel like are easy for a small business like ours to implement to get that effect, that impact, that feeling out of. And that's a
Yeah.
yeah. What you man, what you just said, I would coin that, frame that, put that on a wall somewhere because it's really it's one thing to say it, right? Like I say, it's another thing to execute and be able to hear your people say it back.
Yes.
That's when you know you've got culture. That's when you know you've got something. I talk about, the 94% customer retention and referrals and all that being a direct result of our customer service and how we, set our clients up for success. Um, that last example that we're talking about internally with leadership and staff, that's how you scale your people, right? That's how you that's traction for culture, that's traction for um future or future employee acquisition and retention. And I don't care what anybody says. Yes, AI is here. It is a huge part of the world right now, and it's very intertwined to what we do and how we deliver some of what we deliver.
Mhm.
However, human touch is still critical, right? So, trust but verify is a phrase we use a lot when it comes to AI, and um, our world in marketing will always require the human touch. No
Yeah.
matter how damn smart these computers get, and how capable they get in doing things, that human touch will always be critical, in our industry. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think, like, I mean, you make this really valid point where when we were talking about it, you said, I don't have it down yet. Right. And there's this dynamic where as the business scales and grows, all these complexities increase, but you do see it like in some larger corporations. I think you get to see it on the receiving end. I joke about this all the time. I really like, you go to a Chipotle and just people do not seem like they wanna be there, like,
yeah,
genuinely. My husband and I have a good laugh about it every time. But then funny enough, it's like, love Mexican food and I love eating fast food. So I eat Taco Bell, and then we'll go to
yeah,
Taco Bell, and it's like, we just went to Taco Bell the other day and we're sitting down, and when he delivers our food, he's like, "Would you like some water with that? Let me get you both water." And he goes, "Here you go. Do you need anything else?" And I'm like, "What are we at a restaurant? Like I'm at a Taco
restaurant, yeah,
Bell," right? Like, and it's like the difference is night and day, but you sit there and you're like, I don't know what they're doing on the back end, but every time I go into this place, like I feel it. And every time I go into this place, I'm feeling something different.
yeah.
And yeah, as the complexity increases, it gets harder. So it's really cool to see companies that are kind of putting in this energy and effort, so that I could go to a place like this where someone who's maybe working minimum wage and just I was so happy. And you're like, I love this. Like, I want to come more. I want to come be here more. I want to come to this location. I actually want to talk to your manager. I want to see what you guys are up to. Like
Yeah.
you love it. It's so cool. And then it just spirals. It spirals to your customers, to the people who work there. It's really cool.
It all starts with ourselves, right? Whether
Yeah.
we're the leader or we're a part of a team, the individual if success and growth and all of that, however you want to define what your future looks like, you're not going to get there until you look in the mirror and you understand yourself better. You understand what motivates you. You understand what doesn't motivate you. You understand your strengths and weaknesses, right? I think that a lot of that helps then the bigger picture, right? Whether it
Mhm.
be a team of people that you work with or the client that you touch base with every day, 5 days a week. It exudes out of that, right? That customer experience that you had at Taco Bell versus,
Yeah.
versus the other, obviously. I mean, yeah, you can craft and make that burrito bowl or whatever the hell it is you're getting at Chipotle
Good as
yourself.
you want.
But when, what you want, you
So
know,
I was
they
like, "Are
don't
you
thank
mad
you.
that I'm here? Do I need to go?"
That's right, right. Am I bothering you, right? Like that customer
It's
experience,
really funny.
Chipotle corporate sure as hell wouldn't wanna
Uh,
hear that, right? Taco Bell be like, "Wait, somebody offered to get you water? That's awesome."
yeah,
I think
they're
that probably has
amazing.
to do a lot with the manager at that Taco Bell if he or she wasn't a
Yes.
manager. Could have
And
been
then
that manager, that
who's the
person that they
general
answered.
manager? and
There you
then
go.
the leadership team, and then the executive. Like it's like the snowball. It's
Yeah,
amazing. And you
it is
see it.
amazing.
You see it
But I
when
mean,
it works.
and that's what's cool,
Yeah.
right? Going back to what we were
So
saying, like
cool.
if that's all we could do, truthfully,
Yep.
like if I didn't grow revenue like I want to grow
Mhm.
it and get this thing to the level that I'm envisioning, but for the next 10, 15 years, people that I work with and my team, my colleagues were communicating with me like that and were telling me like, wow, I've really grown as a father because of what I've learned about myself here at work
Yes.
or whatever. Man, that's in my opinion,
Mm.
as humans, that's why we're here. That's why we're naturally we're naturally in a place to connect and support one another. I will chalk that up as success. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that's like, I mean, you talk about the retention rate, you talk about the repeats and referrals. It's like, well, that's why people come back, because it's not just they're experiencing someone who's like, I just have to get this done and get you out of my life. It's like, no, when you have that from the top down, it's like, well, they want to come back. They want to hang out with you. And it is a personal relationship, especially with what you guys do. Like it's so personal and there's so much time spent with individuals. They want to spend time with people who want to be there.
Exactly.
That's
You're
like a
right.
huge part.
Colleagues or clients or
Yeah.
peers or whoever it is, right? Whatever the basis of
Clients.
that relationship is. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the
which
person
is amazing.
it is. It really is. Yeah,
Uh,
it's a special thing. I think that we're pretty lucky and blessed to have that opportunity in the roles that we're in. Because again, it's about being part of someone's life and helping them,
mhm,
contribute to their life in a more sound and reasonable way.
yeah, I love that. Okay, well, we are running out of time. We're having so much fun talking, but
Yeah,
thank
of
you so much for coming today. If people want
course.
to find out more about your company, more about you, where can they find you?
Yep. So if you want to learn more about SR&B advertising, you can visit our website. That URL is srbadv.com. So SRB is our acronym, and then ADV, the first three letters of advertising. srbadv.com. If you want to connect with me personally, if, feel free to fill out a form on the site. You can, of course, do that. But LinkedIn's probably the best way to connect with me one on one. If you just look up Chad G Bauer, you'll see me. Shoot me an EM, a DM, or a connection request, and I'd be happy to support, help however I can. I want to continue to be a steward to not just our people here, but people in this industry are in comparable stages of life. So, would love and be willing to connect with anybody.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll put everything in the show notes too. So just in case you weren't able to write that down, you guys can grab it there. And if you enjoyed this, if you liked it, found it inspiring, feel free to share it with someone else who you think might resonate with it. And thank you again, Chad. This was great. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carly.